talk about the language, preservation of the language, and why it's so important that we get back in the groove of it again, start speaking it.
Our language is our backbone of who we are as Anishinaabe. Our language has our worldview within it, how we interact with the natural world and how we treat it.
Growing up, I didn't have anyone around me that spoke Ojibwe. My grandfather learned it as an adult, but he never spoke it around me. So I pretty much only knew how to say hi.
I didn't grow up around the language at all other than being in school. So it was just a school subject to me. So I never heard it in any of my family members. My grandfather didn't speak. My mother was Oneida, and her parents spoke Oneida, and I would hear that a little bit, but my mom didn't speak Oneida, and so both my parents were English speakers, and they weren't really into the culture either.
Well, I find like the young people that are learning it now, they're really, really trying hard, and they are doing a good job, and there are a lot of them.
Being in language labs, I've started to pick up a little bit of the language, so now I'm actually trying to learn more Ojibwe alongside the students. So the students are inspiring to me because of how well they're doing.
I would see other people, like other, I guess, nations, like Chinese, Japanese, and I'll just see them walking around and they're all speaking in their language, you know, and they're like around my age at the time, and I was thinking, why, you know, how come we're not speaking to each other like in the language? And it was kind of like I was kind of jealous of them. Produced a fire in me, I guess, to start learning. My dad is a big influence on that too. He kind of would give me things, like he would give me a language CD and booklet of Anishinaabe Moan when I was 10 years old, and I didn't really know why at the time. I was just like, okay, I just felt I don't know what I felt at the time, actually. I was just kind of confused, like, okay, I guess he wants me to learn to speak.
This particular group of students that are here are facing a bigger challenge than anyone else, really, who's trying to learn this as a second language, because it's the first time it's been put into like such an academic setting. Immersion is the go-to for learning a language, but they don't really have anywhere that they can go to be immersed into the language because there aren't that many first speakers left. So they have to come here and be put into a classroom setting, which is incongruent with the way that Anishinaabe has generally been taught. So they are going to be the first generation of academically trained second language speakers, which will be interesting because they have a variety of teachers who have different dialects. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, if they're going to continue to have like a mixed dialect, or if they're going to go home and try to find someone to polish their own home dialect.
But it's a learning process every day, and what I've learned along the way is that there's no just end goal in terms of one day you're not just gonna wake up or graduate from a program and say, I'm fluent. I know it all. That day is never gonna come. You're gonna constantly be learning, no matter what level you're at, and you have to kind of accept that process when you're learning this language. No matter how little you know, no matter if you know a lot, you just have to keep going, and you just have to be in love with the process, that you're never gonna know everything.
Like, it's a new wave of speakers, because traditionally speakers were taught in the home, and that's the way that they learned. But because of residential school and all the things that happened, there's a break, and they're learning it as the second language, and potentially their children will learn it as a first language. But because of that big gap, there's things that are lost that are almost irretrievable, because they're things that you learn when you're a child naturally that you don't get taught in school. Like, no one thinks to teach you the things that you would have learned from your mother when you were a child. So it's going to take extra work for them to learn that in order to teach it to their children.
When I have kids, I want to eventually pass it down to them, and then hopefully eventually have families of kids that their first language is Anishinaabe one.